Hello guys, and welcome to episode 7 of the Caged In podcast. This episode I will be looking at the film Peggy Sue Got Married from 1986, the same year as The Boy in Blue came out. This film is directed once again by Francis Ford Coppola. Our main man, Nicolas Cage, is uncle. But before we get into the episode, I just want to have a little roundup of things that have been going on regarding the podcast and stuff like that. So this week I have guested on another podcast, which is the Tom and Steve Show. You can find those guys on Twitter, and their website is the tomandsteveshow.com. They have a really cool concept where they actually interview podcasters about their process of first they do technicals, so they talk about the equipment that people use. Obviously, if people want to know that directly from me, always feel free to hit me up and I'm happy to share that information. Stuff like where podcasters mix their stuff, what sites they use to host the podcast, and then kind of get into more of the reasoning behind podcasting. It's a really fun chat. I'm not going to go into too much about it. Obviously, if you want to hear that conversation, head on over there. I'm sure you can find it on iTunes as well, possibly Stitcher. I'm not sure. Other things to talk about is I've got a lot of guests lined up for future episodes. I'll tell you about who a few of them are. I'm not going to go into detail yet on which episodes they'll be appearing on. As it gets closer to the time of those guests appearing, some of them aren't actually confirmed for episodes yet, but they are kind of confirmed that they will be on the podcast. So first one we have is Tom and Todd from the Bitter End podcast. One of the podcasts I kind of got into when they were at their infancy and kind of have watched those guys grow. So that's going to be really good. Another local podcast based in Brighton. Check those guys out there. Bitter End Pod on Twitter. You can find those guys on Facebook, and obviously all your favourite podcast apps, they're on there. I have the comedian Carl Donnelly lined up. Again, fellow podcaster. I'm actually featured on a special episode of his podcast, which is the Carl Donnelly and Chris Martin comedy podcast. Carl did a special episode recorded at Brighton Comedia, where he kind of sat down with a few of the fans of his podcast and just had a chat. Our chat kind of revolved around stuff we're into, what we did for work and stuff. Both me and Carl are balding men, so that came up. Both bearded, so that came up. And we just chat shit about coffee, dating, all sorts of fun shit. I have also lined up an episode with Those Movie Guys, podcast I mentioned on here before. An amazing podcast, guys who talk about films, nerd culture, TV shows, comic book like stuff. Great podcast. Check them out again on all of the social medias, and they are on iTunes, Stitcher and whatnot. And I have another comedian lined up, which is Joe Bohr, who I found out about him because he has a great video where he plays he happens to look like Nicolas Cage. So this one I'm looking forward to, because it would be funny to hear someone who has some stories of being mistaken for Nicolas Cage and has a great video online that is a character he's playing that jokes about having plastic surgery to look like Nicolas Cage and has this Nicolas Cage obsession. So very fitting in with this podcast. check him out, Joe Bohr. Other things I want to mention is just again the social media aspect of things. Keep up to date with the social media. You can kind of see the photos and posting and stuff like that. I've just got an amazing new photo for the podcast, which you'll see on all the apps and stuff like that, which made from a good friend of mine, Ashley Kitchen. Big shout outs to that one. So social media at Caged In Pod, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I can't implore you guys enough to check all that stuff out. Keep up to date. Like, I will respond to any message anyone gives me, any emails, cagedinpod@gmail.com. Yeah, I'll get back to you guys. Like, obviously I'm trying to juggle doing this podcast with working, having a social life, spending time with my roommate. But I'll do it. And yeah, another thing is, please, I can't ask enough to rate, review, and subscribe on iTunes. I know you're listening, you're enjoying, but those ratings and reviews mean so much. Like a little, it's so quick to do. Just leave a 5-star rating and just a little review. Say if you're enjoying the podcast and stuff like that. You don't have to write much. You could just write, yeah, it's great, or whatever. All that stuff counts to help, like, moving the podcast, get the reach out further and further. Yeah, I'm always really excited to see when I look at the stats and statistics for the podcast, like, all the places that people are listening. Like, there's places I would never have thought of. I'll just have a little look now. Where have we got? Yeah, we've got places like El Salvador, Turkey, Denmark, Ecuador. Like, that's crazy. That's crazy to me to think that there's people listening in them parts of the world, like, let alone that anyone's listening. So yeah, if we can get the reach out even further, that would be great. Another thing I'm going to do before I get into this episode again is have a little stint in the Cage. When it gets to guests coming on, I'm actually going to do a leaderboard, see which one of my guests can spend the longest inside the cage. I feel that will add a fun element to it and kind of give a competitive edge to guests coming on. It's not just their comedic chops and their insightful views into the films, it's how much endurance do they have. Like, I might not get many repeat guests if they know that is a part of it, but what the hell, let's give it a go. So yeah, I'm now going to roll the theme music, and then after that we'll get into the ridiculous nature of Nicolas Cage. Feels like I've been awake for days, watching films starring Nicolas Cage. Could be shit or it could be fun. Valley Girl, Face Off, An Army of One, Deadpool, Cornell, Lord of War, The Wicker Man, Trespass, and so many more. Know how it starts, I don't know how it ends. The first 10 are solo, then it's me and some friends. No distractions, no expectations. Over the weeks, hear my frustrations. I guess the podcast is about to begin. I'm your host, Petra Plasilivus, and I'm caged in. Hello guys, and I'm going to get into things now then. This is episode 7 of the Caged In podcast. For those of you who know the premise, you might want to flick forward like a minute or so, but for those of you who don't, this is a podcast where I, your host, Petros Patsilivus, will be watching every single Nicolas Cage film, every single frame, every single second, every minute detail, so you guys can hear if I go insane. I have rules in place. Those rules are no distractions, no expectations, no distractions, phones off, laptops off, nothing. A darkened room, just me and the film, cage to cage, face to face, eye to eye, nothing but Cage. I've just done a few minutes in the cage. I'm in the zone. I'm in the Cage zone. I'm caged in. And no expectations. If I don't know anything about the film, if I've never seen the film before, I'm not going to look at anything, not look at any trailers, IMDb scores, Rotten Tomatoes. We'll get into that stuff afterwards. We'll see if my reaction of the film and my take on the film is that of popular opinion or that of a man whose mind has been warped by watching too many Nicolas Cage films. So, that's the rules. That's what I'm about. I'm looking forward to this film. Not only do we have our boy Nick Cage, we've got Kathleen Turner, we've got Jim Carrey in an early role. I don't think I've ever seen anything of Jim Carrey in the 80s. I'm looking forward to this one, guys. As I said, it's the third time now that Nicolas Cage has been in a film directed by his uncle Francis Ford Coppola. So far, the two run-ins we've had have been pretty good. The first time was Rumblefish, but there weren't a lot of Cage in that, so not indicative of whether Cage's good. And the second time was the Cotton Club. Again, not a lot of Cage, so I'm hoping this time his uncle's a bit more favourable of him. Maybe he's putting him to the sidelines because he doesn't want to look like he's giving any favouritism to his family. But all that we will find out when we watch the film. So, let's get ready. I'm going to get my feet up. I'm going to turn my phone off. And I'm going to get raging with Cage. So, there we have it, guys. Peggy Sue Got Married has now been seen by my two eyes. I've ingested and digested what this film has to say. And what does it have to say? Well, let's start off with what happens in this film. It's a pretty easy, quick premise of the film. It starts off with Peggy Sue getting ready for a high school reunion. The year is 1985, and you realise that her ex-husband is Raging Cage as he's on the TV in an advert for a discount electronics store. She turns up to the high school reunion, sees all her old pals. She's worried that everyone's going to be asking her questions of how comes it never worked out with Charlie, who's played by Cage, because they were high school sweethearts and people expected them to be together forever. Love's young dream. It hasn't played out that way. She gets nominated as the prom queen and wins, and on the stage she is with another fellow student called Richard, who was a nerd at school but has managed to create massive technological advances in computers and stuff like that, and is an inventor. And he lets on that he didn't like a lot of the people he went to school with because they all picked on him, but look how he's turned out. He says to Peggy, "You were always nice to me," which I think comes to play a bit later on in the film, but we'll get to that when we get to that. So yeah, she gets prom queen, and upon doing so, she faints. And that's when we get the main bulk of the film, which is a real nice, simple premise. She wakes up with the mind of her 1985 self, but in a 1960 body. It's not played by anyone else, still played by Kathleen Turner, but it's almost in the same vein of films like Freaky Friday, kind of those 60s body swap films and stuff like that. And yeah, it's kind of, we just see scenes of her having like trials and tribulations. She's trying to get her head round to the fact that she has gone back, that she's living in it. She thinks she might have died. So she's getting drunk. Obviously, she still feels like she's 25 years older than she actually is. Yeah, she at the time is going out with Crazy Charlie, as he's known in the future, but this time just Charlie, our boy Nicolas Cage. She's still going out with him, and they split up pretty early on because she knows it's not going to pan out well. She knows that obviously he's going to break her heart later on in life, get with someone else. You kind of get a lot of scenes of this kind of thing, like her battling with the idea that she is back in this time. She says to her maths teacher, well, I don't need algebra because I know in the future that it's not gonna help me. And she befriends Richard and tells him that she's actually from the future, and they come up with a plan to invent stuff that would have been invented that was massive. Kind of, it almost gives you the idea that she planted the seed in him then, and maybe this was meant to happen all along. That's kind of what I got from it. Yeah, she goes to a party with Cage, because obviously they're going out, and we see Cage and his band perform.
First of all, he's not a creep. He's an exceptional person. You'd know that if you took any time.
You're just taking pity on him because he has no friends.
You know, if you weren't so neurotic and insecure, maybe you could shut up for a while and show some compassion.
Are you for real?
I don't know what you just said to her, but I wish I'd said it.
Hi,
During the time that the band are playing, she says, Peggy that is, says, oh, isn't he cute and stuff like that. And you realise maybe she's falling into the same old trap, that it's just a cycle that she can't get out of, that was almost predestined no matter what she does. Or is this the child? Is this what happened anyway? Is this chunk of her life lived from an older perspective? I feel like it's open a lot to interpretation, but yeah, I found this really fun and interesting film. The band consists of Cage, Jim Carrey, and two guys who you're never introduced to. They're just in flashy jackets. They look pretty swish, if I do say so myself. One thing I've got to mention is Cage has a fucking mental voice. Yeah, his talking voice in this is crazy. Here's a little clip of it.
Look, I've got the hair, I've got the teeth, I've got the eyes. Well, Peggy, look outside that window. I've got the car. I'm the lead singer. I'm the man. Why are you arguing with me?
It's over, Charlie.
Since watching the film, I've done a little research and seen that Francis Ford Coppola actually gave Nicolas Cage free range into what he did with the character. So this kind of squeaky voice that he puts on, he just runs with it. It's fucking hilarious. I don't think it's meant to be, but it's fucking great. Yeah, in my notes I just kept writing, like, what the fuck is up with his voice? So yeah, after the party, Peggy Sue and him smooch in his car. Classic old, like, teen film fare. She says, let's sleep with each other, which again, this episode's a bit clip heavy, but just got to play this quick clip here.
Charlie, let's make love.
What? You mean sex? Intercourse. You want to have intercourse? Last weekend, you said. What time is it? Holy cow. It's late.
A lot of things have happened since last weekend.
But you were the one who said we should wait, and you were right. We should wait till we get married.
Well, I know I must have believed that one, but when I said it, but doesn't Lucky Chucky want to come out?
Huh?
No. Your love machine, your throbbing thrill hammer, your thing.
You mean my wang?
Oh, it's fucking great. After this, they don't have sex. Sorry, guys. But he gets annoyed because obviously he doesn't really understand what's going on. She's blowing hot and cold, and he's like, he gets pissed off. He drops her off. She ends up going to have a coffee and a donut with a guy who, in the first scene when she's at the high school reunion, says, he's the only other guy I would want to have slept with at school. He's this kind of beatnik, really into Jack Kerouac and stuff like that. He's kind of intense and stuff like that, and was kind of in a scene earlier in the English class was slagging off Hemingway and stuff like that. They have a coffee, and they end up going on his motorbike whilst they're riding off. Dolores, bit of a bitch. She cops an eyeful, and trouble is going to be brewing. But yeah, they kind of go up into the hills. Kind of, he's just being really pretentious, and that kind of, everyone's met that kind of guy. I don't know, I was probably that guy at school. What are you gonna do about it? And yeah, they end up making love under the stars. It's quite a tender moment in the film. And the next day, Peggy Sue goes to Charlie's work. I'm not really too sure why. I think kind of try and figure out what is actually going on. And then we see her chatting to Richard, where they're kind of still trying to come up with inventions of stuff that has been invented that they can make now to obviously beat when they actually came out. And one of the things they do is she goes into a lingerie shop and says, "Do you have any pantyhose?" Which I believe are tights. And they say, "I don't even know what you're talking about." So she goes home and starts making a prototype, which is a plot line we actually never see the end of. So that kind of, I don't know why I even fucking told you guys, because that ends there. So her pals come round to her house. She hides the pantyhose, and they ask, "So what happened with Richard last night? Because Dolores has spilled the beans." Dolores, that bitch. She kind of explains it. Obviously, she's got the head and she's got the head on her shoulders of a lady who's 25 years her senior. So she's kind of not really. She doesn't see the big deal of it. Obviously, the teenage mind, everything is a massive fucking deal. So they kind of like make a big thing of it. And then she asked them like, "Oh, maybe we'll hang out tonight." Like, "Hey, it's Saturday. It's date night. Of course we're not going to hang out, just the gals." But obviously, they're not to know that it's all bullshit. Chasing the fellas ain't what it's all about, girls. It's a little life tip for you. It's a life tip for you fellas as well. It's not all about the girls. Just do what makes you happy. And then we get a scene. Actually played the first clip I played of Charlie having a go, saying he's got the hair, he's got the teeth. I think the teeth are affecting your voice, mate, and really need to get them checked the fuck out. He creeps into her room like fucking Nosferatu out of nowhere, kind of like says, we need to have a chat in the basement, as if creeping in for a window wasn't creepy enough. We have a chat in the basement. We all know basements are bad. We all know they're scary. We've all seen the furnace from Home Alone. A chat in the basement. We've seen a lot of stuff. Basements aren't a good place to be having a chat. Like, scary fucking shit down there. I wouldn't go down to a basement on my own. Yeah, especially if Nick Cage climbed in my window at night and said, I want to have a chat with you in the basement. I'd be like, Nick, we're doing it here, or we're not doing it at all. I'm a bit pissed off that obviously you've climbed through my window at 3 o'clock in the morning. Could this not have been a text message or a WhatsApp or maybe even an email? Maybe just leave a voicemail for me? No, I'm not having a chat with you in the fucking basement. Yeah, he loses his shit really, and drives Peggy Sue away into the arms of another man, this man being Michael. And they kind of sit down and have a chat about what they're going to do after high school has ended. And he has this grand plan to move to Utah and meet up with this woman he met last summer, and she should come along. The women should raise chickens. He can write, fill his passions onto the page and form some weird polygamous relationship. Not that polygamous relationships are weird, guys. I just mean in the context of this film, he's pretty weird. It sounds pretty weird. She's not really into it, and she says to him, like, I'm sure you're going to be a great writer. You should do that. Maybe one day you'll remember me and that night under the stars. Remember that? It's a key thing. And in this bar, there's a R&B band playing, like a kind of Do-wop soul-y band. And who comes on as guest frontman? You got it, guys. Raging Cage. He's crooning. He's swinging. He's not sounding as mental as when he speaks in the film. He's pretty good. His singing career, though, isn't going great, because you see a quick scene of him and the promoter or some bigwig in the music industry saying, I don't think it's really going to work out. The next morning, again, I think part of the reason Peggy Sue wasn't really interested in Michael was she seems to be drawn to Charlie, even though you have all the weirdness, all the creeping in through the window, the talks in the basement, the kind of flying off the handle. Like, he doesn't quite understand it all yet. He is heart set on his music. He says he's not going to work in the electrical store for the rest of his life. Obviously, she knows differently. She's from the future, so she knows that is where he ends up. And she makes a point that his failed music career, he got bitter and put it upon her. So yeah, the next day she turns up to see him with a song that she's written, which turns out to be the Beatles' I love you, you know, I love you, yeah, 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 I love you, yeah, 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 which he actually changes the lyrics to. He says, I've changed all the yeahs to O's, so his version is a bit more like, I love you, oh, 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 I love you, oh, oh, oh. Yeah, I think, yeah, that was pretty better than playing a clip. You get my terrible singing rendition of that. Then we see a kind of pivotal moment with Peggy Sue saying goodbye to Richard. She says that she got pregnant on her 18th birthday, and her 18th birthday is tomorrow. Out of nowhere, there's been no mention of it up until this point, but her 18th birthday is tomorrow, and she feels like she needs to change the course of things. Richard says, let's change it. Let's get married. She says she doesn't want to be that. She doesn't want to see Peggy Sue Got Married. That's what she's known as. She got married really young because of the pregnancy. So she says, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to go stay with my grandparents for the weekend. Lets down old Charlie, KG, weird voice fella. He gets annoyed. She goes to see her grandparents. It's kind of quite a weird, surreal setting. It's kind of like quite hazy. It's a very atmospheric moment, and kind of almost feels otherworldly when she's with her grandparents, and she's totally honest to them about how she feels. You're not sure whether they believe her or not, or kind of just going along with their teenage granddaughter. She's very, very pleased to obviously spend time with them, because in the 25 years that have passed, she now knows that they pass away, so is very thankful for their company. That's the word I was looking for. Her granddad, though, is part of some type of Masonic stonecutters style group of fellas who wear some funny weird hats, and they believe they can change her back, send her back to the present time. In doing so, they do this ceremony, that's probably more fitting of a word for it, where they kind of put their thumbs on each nostril and have their hands. I'm trying to explain this in podcast form, probably is not great. They have, so their right hand, they have the thumb of the right hand on the right nostril, and the thumb of the left hand on the left nostril, so the thumbs are overlapping, and then they have the fingers waving, so it's kind of like in your face. Try it at home. If you do it, get someone to do a boomerang and send it to me. That'd be fucking great. I'll put it on Instagram, actually. I'll put it on all the social media. I'll do a boomerang of me doing the funny face from that sequence, so any of you guys who have listened to this episode will know what it's about. I'm going to leave it a bit cryptic. Yeah, people who don't know will think I'm fucking mental if they don't already. During the ceremony, the lights flicker, and when they come back on, she's gone. And you're like, wow, fuck. The old geezers, the old Masons have done it, haven't they? They've bloody sent her back to the future. No, they haven't. Charlie has come in and kidnapped her, because he's a stand-up guy, isn't he? He's not a weirdo. He doesn't climb in your window at night and have a chat with you in the basement. I actually know he fucking does, and he's pretty weird. They have a chat in a greenhouse where he says, that's it, I'm done with the music, let's get married. And they have a moment where she is presented with a locket, and when opening it, she's like, wow, you've got the locket with our kids, pictures of our kids in it. She's like, his response is, no, I got that locket from your mum. They're not our kids. What do you mean? Like, they're me and you as babies. And obviously, in a way, that's what their kids are. They are an amalgamation of the both of them as babies. Yeah, that's obviously how that works. I don't think you need me to tell you, and I don't think I'm qualified to really talk about that type of thing. And this kind of has like a realization in her. It's kind of like everything was leading her to this moment, because they kind of fall to the floor inside the greenhouse, start kissing, I assume have sex, and I assume it puts everything back in to the way it was supposed to be, because in this moment it then goes to her in the hospital, and she had an irregular heart pattern, and that's it. She's back in 1985, and Charlie has been there the whole time in the hospital, and she briefly explains what has happened. Well, no, does she? No, I don't think she does. Sorry, she does or she doesn't. I don't know. It doesn't really matter. Says there's loads of people with like flowers and stuff like that, and he's like, Charlie says to her, it's really weird, this guy that we went to school with, Michael has left this book for you, and it's dedicated to you, and it says, "To Peggy Sue and a Starry Night," which in this moment, obviously I thought when she'd woken up it'd be the classic, which was kind of dreading like the "and it was all a dream" ending, which it could well be. There's a few things that make me think otherwise, or it's very open to interpretation. I'm not sure if it's a really cool shot or it kind of is something that's supposed to keep the audience guessing, but Charlie leans in for a kiss, and on his way out the camera pans out and it almost comes through a mirror and then into the room again, with obviously the reverse image of what you've seen. But it is like, is that supposed to be a signal to us that it's a story playing out in that mirror, in a kind of, that isn't what happened, and this is all a dream of what have happened in the moment she was in a coma, and obviously had a terrible ordeal with her heart beating irregularly. But yeah, if you guys have any theories on it, obviously Facebook, Twitter, Instagram at CageSynPod. Shoot me an email, cagesynpod@gmail.com. We'll just, yeah. I don't know, like, I don't know on that one what is the thing, but that is the end of the film. So let's get a bit more into kind of what the fuck did I think about it. I thoroughly enjoyed this. As I said in the rundown of the film, it was very reminiscent of films like the original Parent Trap, Freaky Friday. There's a few others, and the mum as well is someone who is featured in, I want to say she's in the original Freaky Friday. She's definitely maybe in the original series of Bewitched, but that just like, obviously I imagine Francis Ford Coppola would have done that on purpose, because yeah, it has just got one of those, I believe those films made by Disney, it's got very much a reminiscent feel of those types of films. Cage, on the other hand, was coming in from God knows where, but this has excited me because this has seen the first time we've seen Nicolas Cage given free rein, and I believe that is when this podcast is going to get interesting, when we see him in creative control of his characters, because up until this point I very much feel like he has been moulded and he has been directed, whereas he has been directed, whereas from this point on I feel like we're going to see a lot of things where they're hiring him because he's Nick Cage. They're hiring him because he's got two levels of playing. He's got weird voice. I don't know what that was. That sounded like backwards talking from Twin Peaks. But yeah, or kind of yeah, man. Like up there, you've like there's no in between from this point on. I don't reckon we're gonna get any nuanced performances like stuff that we've got so far. I feel like this is when the reins, no pun intended, guys. He's been let out of the cage. He's going loose. He's rabid. He is wild. And I'm looking forward to it. I can't wait. Can't wait to get stuck into these films where he's just fucking mental. As for other performances in this film, Kathleen Turner, fucking great. If you don't recognise the name, she's probably best known for a lot of people for playing Chandler's dad on Friends. Like, I hate to say that really, because she's fucking a great actress, and I don't know, Friends, yeah, that she's fucking great in this. If you haven't seen it, go back and watch Peggy Sue Got Married. It's great. Jim Carrey, not really in it. Obviously this isn't about Jim Carrey. Maybe in a later season I'll do him, maybe I won't, because he's done a lot of good films, not that much shit. So it wouldn't be that fun to do and wouldn't be that torturous. Actually, yeah, what I'm saying, he's done a lot of shit. But yeah, I probably won't do that one. But yeah, he's not really in it. Doesn't really matter. Like, I was just glad we got Cage at his Cajun best. Now, I'm going to have a quick look at what the internet is saying about this film. So we've heard what I have to think about it. Let's look at the professionals, the IMDb score, the Metacritic, and the Rotten Tomatoes. So we've got some good news, we've got some bad news, guys. We've got an IMDb score, we've got a Rotten Tomatoes score, but there's not a Metacritic score for this film. But on good news, we got the Roger Ebert score. Obviously a world-renowned movie critic, so I'm sure his view, a lot of you will probably rate, it's kind of universally known as he is the man to go to in ratings for films. I also quickly checked out, it is Barbara Harris who plays the mum, Peggy Sue's mum, and yes, also played the mum in Freaky Friday. So I don't think it's a coincidence that this film had elements that were reminiscent very much to Freaky Friday. Films of that era, kind of Parent Trap era films, if you know what I mean. This kind of a kind of thing in 60s cinema that this had a lot in common with. Not that just that it was set in the 60s, but the kind of story, the kind of, going back in time travel almost, but you're in your old body. You know what I mean, guys. So let's get on with it. The Rotten Tomatoes score, 85%. That's pretty good. Like, I can't remember what the film was last. It was like 45 or 56. Like, this is a good upswing. This is a higher class of film than we got in The Boy in Blue. I enjoyed this a lot. This is kind of, hey, Roger Ebert, move aside. God rest in peace. Petrospat Service has taken over, guys. Like, I called it. I said this is a good, fun, enjoyable film. IMDb, 6.3 out of 10. Again, could be worse. Could be a lot worse score. And Roger Ebert, 4 out of 4, baby. Yes. See, these films are not polluting my mind. I can still pick a winner. I don't know if that is going to be the case moving forward. So that's our lot for Peggy Sue Got Married. Peggy Sue has been put to bed. Now on to what is coming up. What have we got next? So over the next few episodes, next episode we'll have Raising Arizona from 1987. I'm looking forward to this one, guys. The Coen brothers. I've seen it once before, can't remember it, but I've got a feeling it's gonna be good. Then we've got Moonstruck, Nicolas Cage and Cher. I actually watched an interview earlier saying that it was his performance in Peggy Sue Got Married that made Cher want him in that film. So we're going to get a bit more of that nutso Cage. I'm hoping so. You're hoping so. Because the more mental he gets, hopefully the more mental I get. And then after that, Never on a Tuesday. Never ever heard of it. Never on a Tuesday, on a Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or Monday. I've never heard of that film. So, again, going in open mind. After that episode, I'm probably going to do a 10 episode roundup. So, what have we learnt so far? Probably not a lot. But, yeah, I think I might take a IQ test at that point. And then every 10 take one. Obviously, I should have taken one at the beginning, but it wasn't an idea. I didn't think about it, but now I've thought about it. So yeah, after the first 10, I'm going to take an IQ test to see if this makes me stupid, or if this, I don't know, somehow makes me more intelligent. I don't think it's going to do that. And then we have the first episode of a guest. Episode 11 will be Vampire's Kiss, and I cannot fucking wait for this one. The 2 times I've done the Cage, the Vampire's Kiss sequences that are very famously known, the I'm a vampire, and the A, B, C, D scene feature heavily. A lot of clips on that film do. It is very much well quoted and a real dive into insanity from Nicolas Cage. So maybe this will be one that will loosen a few screws in my mind. I'm as of yet to get a guess for that one, but I've got 1 or 2 people in mind that I would love to get on that. It's the first people I actually watched the film with, so that'd be kind of cool. Yeah, I'll let you know once I've discussed it with those guys and got that in place. I'll announce that maybe in the next episode or the one after. Who knows, guys? Gonna leave it there for episodes we've got coming up, because I feel like that's nice little bite-sized chunk of films that you have to look forward to hearing me talk about. The dynamic will obviously be different once I've guessed in, and it will be fun, lots of fun. Constantly talking to people, of getting them on the podcast, which is great. I'm amazed that Carl Donnelly of the Carl Donnelly and Chris Martin Comedy Podcast actually agreed to come on. That's going to be real fun. Real funny comedian. Check him out. He's constantly doing dates. A lot of time in London and up and down the country. Obviously, have a look on his social media. Check him out on Twitter. He's at Carl Donnelly. Yeah. And obviously check out their podcast as well. It's fucking great. As I said, in the intro, I actually feature on a special episode of that, which is called Carl on Tour Brighton. So yeah, check that out. Subscribe to them. And obviously subscribe to this podcast, guys. Yeah, I always say it, but it really does help. Like, I'm not sponsored for this. I get no money for doing this. I'm just literally doing it out of that, I would say, the love of my heart, but that might not be true. Just a little thing. I'm finding this really fun. I kind of had this idea, and as I explained when I was on the Tom and Steve show podcast, I had this idea. I thought it'd be fun, and it is fun. So I've just rolled with it. But obviously, yeah, if we could get it out to more people, that would be great. So obviously iTunes, rate, review, and subscribe. Like, I know every podcast says that. Like, I don't check out some other podcasts, guys. Like, I constantly listen to Hardcore Listing with Stu and Chris. It's amazing. It's a new podcast. As I said, the Carl Donnelly and Chris Martin Comedy Podcast. Again, like, hilarious. Distraction pieces for Scroobius Pip. As I've mentioned on the podcast before, I've tried to get Pip on the podcast. Didn't work out, but who knows? Maybe in the future I'll pest the power. I'll do a Cage. I'll creep into his window at night and say, "Hey mate, let's have a chat in the basement." Not going to do that. If anyone listening, please do not tweet Scroobius Pip saying someone on a podcast has threatened to climb in your window at night, because that's not what I'm going to do. Yeah, who else do I listen to? Obviously, Richard Herring, Leicester Square podcast, dip into that. Ramesh Ranganathan, Hip Hop Saved My Life. Yeah, check out all of these podcasts, guys. The Bitter End as well. Ugh, can't forget those guys. They're amazing. Currently trying to line up which film they're going to come and do, because that is something we haven't discussed yet. And another couple of shout outs podcast is obviously Those Movie Guys. They shouted me out a fair few times and they're great. I'm really getting into their stuff. Like, it's kind of, if you can't be bothered with all the constant trailers that are posted online, you don't want to sift through them all, they'll tell you if they're good or not. They'll tell you if the films like look exciting and stuff like that. I'd say kind of really passionate guys and really love films, and they're doing it. Yeah, check out them. Those Movie Guys podcast. And last but definitely not least, Sort of Ghostly podcast. It's fucking great. It's recorded by a friend of mine and two friends of mine. Sorry, I was just saying that because I don't really know Murphy that well, but it's James Hunt and Murphy, and they do a podcast kind of talking about ghosts, not so much debunking it, not so much pro ghosts, but just talking about the wonderful world of ghosts and ghost hunters, and it's fucking hilarious. So check those guys out on iTunes as well. Well, guys, as usual, I've been your host, Petros Patsilvis. I've been caged in. You've been rad. See you next time. Bye.
So, this is the reunion. One. Blah. Blah.
Charlie?
Blah, blah, blah. Blah, 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 blah.
It? I don't think so, you know. It happened, but not with you. It's, believe me when I tell you. Maybe it's the material, but it can't happen.
I want to suck your blood. I also want to suck your Twinkie.
Your love machine? Your throbbing thrill hammer? Your thing?
You mean my wang? Oh, God. You mean my wang? Bye-bye.